All right, and we are live. Welcome, guys, to the MobilityTech section of our KL Startup Slam track. This is the last section, and I'm really happy to be talking to four amazing founder and CEOs of Malaysian startups. We're going to be talking about agility in the economic uncertainty. I'm going to introduce our speakers today, and then I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about why we chose this topic. So the first speaker we have is Benjamin. He's the COO at Carsome, which is the Southeast Asia's largest integrated e-commerce platform. He is responsible for driving synergy and operational efficiency across all markets that Carsome operates in, namely Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. Before he joined Carsome, Benjamin was also the director of e-commerce at Dairy Farm International. He was a co-founder and group CEO of Happy Fresh and COO at Lazada Indonesia. So welcome, Ben. We also have the next speaker, Hean. He's currently the country manager at MrSpeedy Malaysia, an on-demand same-day delivery platform that connects businesses to motorcycles, cars, and one-ton lorry courier partners in Klang Valley, Johor Bahru, and Penang. So he has over 9 years of experience being in early stages of various startups, including Lazada, Uber Eats, GrabFood. All right. Oh, that's it. Okay. But yeah, 9 years. That's amazing. Welcome, Chun. We also have Francesca, who's the co-founder and CEO of GoGet, an on-demand workforce technology platform that connects businesses to reliable part-timers called go-getters. So GoGet has redefined the traditional part-time job opportunities that exist in Malaysia and an on-demand fulfillment with better information flow and technology innovation. So today, GoGet is the leading technology platform for part-time jobs in KL by connecting businesses in the city to trusted and verified getters. And last but not least, we also have Nadhir, who's the co-founder and executive director of TheLorry, which is a regional digital logistics platform that connects customers to lorries, trucks, vans, 4x4 pickup truck drivers in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. He spearheads product marketing initiatives as well as growth strategy in Thailand and Indonesia at TheLorry. And he's also the recipient of Forbes Asia's 2017 30 Under 30. Wow, well, that is definitely a mouthful for all of you. Amazing stuff that you guys have achieved here. And the big reason why we wanted to talk about agility in the economic uncertainty in Malaysia is because, as you guys know, there are so many companies in the world that has filed for bankruptcy and has shut down. But you guys are still here, which means you guys must have done something right. And we want to learn from each other. What were some of the things that you guys have done? But before we go into that, maybe some of you would like to just talk about what your companies are about. What are the products and service offerings? So maybe we'll start just alphabetically order in this case. So Ben, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ashley. Everybody, thanks for joining the session. So Carsome is the largest integrated car e-commerce marketplace in this region in Southeast Asia. Our headquarters in Malaysia. Most Malaysians will know us as we are a significant part of the used car market there. We have 3 different business models, essentially. One is C2B, how we call it, where we buy cars from individual sellers, from end consumers, and we sell them off to dealers. Part of that business is also the 2B business, where we sell these to the dealers. And then we have recently launched a business that we call B2C, which is where we take some of those cars and we sell them back to the end consumers in a very new, very innovative way, digitally enabled, with a lot of trust and transparency. It's a very different journey from your usual used car purchase experience. So yeah, we're a fairly large company by now. We operate across Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. We've got over 1,000 people as part of our team. We are doing about 70,000 cars in a year, about 600 million in GMV. So a fairly large numbers already. I joined the company fairly recently, actually almost during the lockdown. I started with Carsome in July, and I'm jumping in for Eric, who couldn't make it, and he's apologizing. But hopefully, you can bear with me during this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. All right, let's go to Chun.
Hi everyone, Chun. So yeah, I'm the country manager at MrSpeedy Malaysia. So MrSpeedy, it's part of Dosta Vista Group actually. So we're a Russian-based company. We're one of the largest on-demand same-day delivery platform globally in terms of country presence and also website traffic. So we are currently in 10 over countries actually. So we're in Southeast Asia, we're in South Korea, we're in India, Mexico, Brazil, Turkey, and basically like Ashley said, we connect businesses, especially SMEs, home-based businesses, to our independent contractors, basically our drivers who who has motorcycle, cars, one-ton lorry. And we started about 2.5 years ago in Malaysia in Klang Valley, but we have recently expanded to Johor Bahru as well as Penang. So looking forward to serve even more markets after this.
Wow, that is very optimistic. All right, thank you, Chun. And next we'll go to Francesca.
Hi, everyone. As Ashley mentioned, I'm Francesca. I'm one of the co-founders of GoGet. Really excited to be here and looking forward for the conversation. A little bit of background of what GoGet does. We are an on-demand workforce platform where we connect businesses to reliable part-timers in the area whom we call go-getters. And so what we aim to be is we aim to enable the flexible workers to work on a trusted and flexible solution. So they can work even for 1 hour to a full day, depending on their preferences. And one of our biggest mission is to enable that flexible work to be in a sustainable fashion and in a sustainable manner, where they can get an on-demand workforce benefit similar to a full-time benefits like permanent options for jobs. So we do work with company and institutions such as EPF, SOCAR to ensure that they also get the traditional benefits, but an on-demand level. And I'll be able to kind of share a little bit more about that. And on the other end, what we do is we connect these companies ranging from micro, small, medium to even as larger multinational companies in Malaysia to connect to one flexible worker to 100 flexible workers, depending on their needs. And the aim for that is for us to scale their operations without scaling their full-time costs. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, and last but not least, Nadhir.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's fine and doing great on this wonderful Sunday. My name is Nadhir, one of the co-founders and executive director of TheLorry. On top of what Ashley already mentioned, I think I probably won't repeat it, like what we do. But quite simply, on top of providing jobs to our pool of driver partners, we also provide them with a very healthy ecosystem, right? Ecosystem or a benefits ecosystem, so that they can actually make their operations more efficient and lower than their costs. So what does that mean? It means that we partner with financial providers. It means that we partner with workshop providers. It means that we partner with fuel companies. Sorry. Chocolate Ferrero Rocher is stuck in my throat because I just had one earlier. So we not only focus on providing jobs for our partners, but also providing benefits. And we have two business segments at the moment, which is number one, essentially truck brokerage, digital brokerage. So this is where we help our customers to procure such lorries, vans, and trucks. And then the other one is essentially supply chain solutions. And before I choke to death, I better.
All right, thank you, Nadhir. Well, while he goes and gets his drink, I'm just going to share a funny story here. Don't mind me. Well, since it's not here, I guess I'll get to share it. Is that he thought the conference was last month on the 28th. So he actually got ready, put hair gel on, was ready to go. And then he found out that no, it was actually like a month later. So I was really excited to kind of talk to you guys and be here. So that was a funny story. Yeah, he didn't catch that, so it's okay. So while we go back to the topic, one thing is that as Malaysians, I'm sure that you have been connected or heard about these businesses before. Even some of you may have even used it before. If you have not, definitely check them out and support our own local Malaysian brands. And the next thing that I just wanted to ask you guys on is that, you know, before the MCO period, I'm sure none of you expected that it would be this tough, right? It would be this challenging. What were some of the biggest changes in your organization? And also, because now we know that you're afloat and you're thriving, what were some of the biggest driving force that enable you guys to stay afloat? So anyone who would like to go first can just unmute and just go for it.
I'm gonna go first because earlier I was dying, so now I'm healthy again. Okay, so let me give you a bit of background about TheLorry. Essentially, when we started, we focused on a very niche segment in Malaysia, which is actually house moving, right? So house moving, people who want to move house from one place to the other, and we'll provide such solutions. And then we realized, right, that actually house moving is something that you can't really squeeze the user to you again the very next day or the very next month, or even the very next 6 months after that, because the use case is infrequent. And therefore, that's why we actually decided to put a bit more focus on what we call B2B, right, corporate use case. So for FMCG, F&B, industrial users to book a truck, to book a van for their deliveries to either warehouses or to their shops, to their customers' shops. But the thing is, we have had this mentality that, hey, whatever business comes, we will take. So we become sort of like a solution, which is something like everything to everyone. So we wanted to serve everyone, and we had no focus whatsoever, right? So we just told ourselves, whatever business comes to the door, okay, we take it. And I guess the problem with that mentality is you become, a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. And in 2019, we told ourselves, hey, we gotta focus on something. We gotta think about our positioning in the market and see what business or what segment can we really thrive on. And one of the things that we thought about, which was scalable and also had huge potential, and this was prior to COVID, was e-commerce deliveries. So we're talking about not deliveries, i.e. The ones that JNT, Post Laju, GDEX are doing, right? We focus on the more big items. We're talking about furniture and also household appliances, right? And we thought that this particular market is a blue ocean of sort. Not many people are actually looking at it. And we said to ourselves in 2019, hey, we want to be this. We want to be the champion of a bulky specialist in Southeast Asia. So if, let's say, any sellers, they sell furniture or household appliances, we want to be the preferred provider for that. And what do you know, right? COVID came, and we were feeling actually quite down, of course, because we had to do. It was very, very uncertain, right? In March, in fact, exactly 1 year, like 1 year today, right? We were very uncertain as to what the future holds. But what happened in May 2020 really shocked us, right? Our volumes went up 4 times, 5 times. And then June, 5 times, 6 times. And then everything was like, what's happening here, right? So everybody was adopting e-commerce as their preferred shopping option. And we saw that this was going to be a secular trend, i.e. not just something that will be a fad. And we rode the wave. We moved warehouses or sorting centers 2 times within a space of 1 year. And I would say that we were a bit lucky, considering that we made that decision to focus resources, technology, processes all into e-commerce in 2019. If we did not do that, maybe we wouldn't be in the position that we are right now in 2020. So I have that to be grateful about. And thank you to the water, and no thank you to the Ferrero Rocher for making my throat feel like shit. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was such a good answer. And funny thing is, when I first joined SOCAR as well, we had this thought about selling like items in our SOCAR in like nearby neighborhoods. And I did like a quick research on what was selling the most on e-commerce, and you guys wouldn't believe this, but like the highest was like women's underwear, and it's like above pots and pans and latex gloves, and it's like interesting. So thank you to TheLorry for getting it everywhere. All right, who would like to go next? And like maybe you can relate to what Nadhir has said as well. Yeah,
I think I can pick up that topic. I think one really important a word that was just mentioned is focus, right? And I think when I look back to what we did at Carsome when COVID struck, focus plays a big role. When everything shut down back in March, April, and literally our business went to zero for some time, right? All the new cars, all the used car dealership, everything was closed. We couldn't operate our branches. We had no business essentially anymore. The leadership team at Carsome all sat down and tried to figure out what are the next steps and how do we want to react to this. And very soon, I think a vision was crystallized around the fact that this will not last forever. We will bounce back, and we will bounce back very strongly, because we could foresee already that the general fear that people have of this virus in the long run may even help the private car ownership and used car buying, and that's it's logical when you think about it in hindsight. So when a virus is circulating, what's the safest environment to travel in? Your own private car, right? It's not public transport, it's not ride hailing. There's going to be a push towards owning a private car, and at the same time, the economy is suffering, at least to some extent. So there's a bit less money to go around. So there will be a shift from new cars into used cars. So we actually thought, okay, if this plays out the way we think, we will be, at the center of this storm. And how do we best to that? How do we best capitalize on that? And how are we ready for our customers, both the dealers and the sellers? And so we made some really important decisions. The first one was we didn't let anybody go. We had no business. We had nothing for them for a while, essentially, of the normal BAU kind of tasks. But we said we were going to hold on to the team because we knew we needed the team once everything opens up again and once everything bounces back. And we probably need an even larger team to be ready for that. So instead of letting people go and downsizing at that moment to react to what we were seeing then in those few months, we actually upped our hiring, and we brought in more talent and new talent, and we strengthened the team with the view of being ready for when things open up again. We also invested a lot in training. We started what we call the Carsome Academy, where we train our inspectors, our customer service staff. A lot of the ground level staff receives this in-house training through Carsome Academy, completely separate business almost that is run by one of our co-founders, JT, and he does an excellent job at having built this academy and continuing to build it. So we invested a lot in that, and that's paid off very handsomely because the level of operations has gone up a lot. We invested in systems and technology. We reviewed what are the tools that we really need, what are the tweaks. So it was a great time to get rid of some tech debt. When you're not constantly running to catch up with the growth and firefighting left and right, and you've got these 2 months to kind of breathe and step back for a minute and look at, okay, what are the key things we can get ready now to put us in the best possible position for when things open up again. And I think we did this extremely well at Carsome. And that's exactly what then happened. And we did get lucky in the sense that things opened up again towards, May, June, and then Q3, we were ready for that growth that came in, and we were sort of first ones out of the gate. And we set a new record. So we had a more than V-shaped recovery. We were above where we were pre-COVID. By Q4, we were double where we were pre-COVID. And we set a new record basically in terms of transactions and revenue and customers and any metric you can think of every quarter since then. So Q3, Q4 was even bigger. Q1, we're a bit close. Even if it closed today, it'd be a new record already again. So we've seen this tremendous growth. And I think if we had been too scared early on and we had said, we don't know when this is going to open, we don't know what's going to happen, let's downsize, let's right size, let's bring burn down. So we did bring our burn down, but in things where you could quickly adjust. Obviously we didn't spend much on marketing, and we looked at our expenses, but we invested in our people and we held on to our people and we made it very clear. And I think a big part of that also was really over communicating. Eric and the rest of the leadership team, they were very present during that crisis. They were saying, look, here's how we're going to react. They tried to there was so much uncertainty in the team, and we had to address that early and very offensively and say, look, here's what we're planning to do. You don't have to be stressed. We're going to hang on to you. We're going to get ready for when this launches. Don't be scared, and really communicate what our plan was. And I think that was really important. Investing in learning, investing in the academy. We also did things like we set aside a fund, a COVID-19 relief fund, where the senior management contributed out of their own salaries into this fund to make sure that we're ready. If an employee, if a team member ended up being affected by COVID, there was an immediate relief payment that was made them and their family. We had coverage for when they needed treatment. So I think the team felt very reassured that we had their back. And at the same time, we told them, look, we're doing this for you. You know, you have to be ready for us, and you have to be accountable, and you have to really, when crunch time comes, you have to be ready. And they responded phenomenally well. I think the entire team across all 3 countries, you know, they were ready out of the gate, and they were motivated, and it worked extremely well. So that's the big learning for us during the pandemic, and some of the changes of the strategy that we've made and some of the key decisions we've made.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's such a heartfelt story. And that really leads nicely to question 2 that I'm going to ask you a little bit more later on, because there were so many things that you've said that I wanted to double click. And a lot of companies, I think, can learn from, you know, you guys in terms of like building and sustaining and retaining the employees. And particularly, I wanted to learn more about the trainings that you guys have done, right? And also in terms of optimizing the resources on those downtime. One thing that really caught my eye when you talked about it was like some malls, they also decided to do their renovations during the downtime, which I thought was really smart, which was quite similar to, you know, what you guys are doing, right? Upgrading your systems, making sure it's in place. All right, perfect. We have Fran and Chun. Who would like to go first?
Sure, I'll go next, because I think on the previous 2 speakers, there are definitely a lot of topics that I could definitely build on. Similarly to Nadhir, I think one of the things that we had done pre-COVID was that we really focused our vision on building out a truly on-demand workforce platform, which meant that we would be building out. We had just focused our content structure strategy, where we will serve 4 main departments in SME in companies, and that would be logistics. So that would be, let's say, picking and packing and doing delivery. There'll be admin work, which is being an admin staff and issuing out documents. Or there will be sales and marketing, be a promoter on the ground. And finally, even customer service would be, for example, receptionists or a floor staff and event staff. And when the pandemic hit, it was as if we had done this lovely exercise and we were so excited to move towards larger vision. And then the government was like, no, the only job you can do is dispatch. And then we were like, what? Right? And so it was very similar to almost not entirely 100% like Ben's, closing every center. But for us, we had to close 99% of our workforce staff options, and we could only open 1 tile in the app, right? And that was dispatch. And it was actually the one that we were like, oh, that's pretty healthy. It's a BAU. We're going to now go innovate in all these new tiles, and we're going to go build all these new tiles. And then it was just like, oops, hold on, backtrack. We can only do this 1 tile. And we didn't know how long the government, we knew they were going to open, but we didn't know when the government was going to allow it, because we actually had to be regulated, of course, as an essential service, right? And so that was a major shift. And I think one of the biggest memories I remember having was in the first, on March 18th, I had to sit back and really gather the direction of the company and communicate. I think that was the big thing that Ben had said. I had spent a lot of focus and time on this company announcement. And mind you, I have a very tiny team compared to Ben's, right? But it was just so that everyone knew how to handle this crisis. Most of the time, not only is everyone on the frenzy in the supermarket going crazy buying things, but the staff and everyone, this was the first lockdown. No one knew what was happening, right? They didn't, and it was very clear, because even in the first day after the lockdown, I remember our numbers dropped to like 30% of normal business. So like 60% was cut and instantly. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I don't know how long this could drop even more, because, even though we are an essential service, there are also go-getters that would say, I'm not leaving my house because I am scared and I would not like to do a job. So your supply also gets cut, right? And so, thankfully, over the time, I think for Nadhir, like how it came up in May, for us, it came up within a week, and it went back to 100%, and obviously went up to even as close as, even beyond actually 4x our normal business. But for that, when that happened, I had anchored our team on 2 main philosophies. I said, guys, the main thing you have to keep in mind right now is how can we be helpful? Because we were one of the few systems or services that could actually operate during lockdown. And number two, safe. Right, these were equally important, right? Helpful and being safe. Safe for not only the users, but actually the go-getters. Ultimately, they're risking their lives as well to do the job. So overnight, we needed to change SOPs. But how do you change SOPs to do these two things for one tile when we do not own a traditional business where people don't go to an office and they're not employees? Right. So, but we have 20,000 around the three cities, JB, Penang, and KL, and we needed to be able to communicate this. So I must say the team had to come together very quickly. We had to really actually, our communication, not only the SOPs have to be reissued, but the key thing we had to communicate to people was the reason why. Right. And we had to turn off features like confirmation on delivery. We used to get people to click on the relationship. Are you the guard or the receptionist for the delivery? You can't touch another person's phone. How do we do the confirmation of delivery at this point? Right. So, but we needed to educate everyone to say, don't in any situation have contact delivery, and you now have to perform contactless delivery, right? And so that was very tough. And how would we be able to monitor that? So we had to really, one of the biggest things that we had invested in before this, which I think we're really thankful, is we did really invest in community building. And community building, I know it's a bit, for some people, it's quite fluffy in their eyes, but for us, it's very, very technical and tangible in our opinion, actually. We invest in it so much so as how, in the past 6 years that we've been around, we have teh tarik sessions with our community. We have buka puasa with our community. So we have dinners, we have like makan sessions because of that community, sense of community. I think when we came together for time of need, the 20,000 go-getters that was, in the city that we do not, own them in any way in terms of salary, right? But they were able to kind of come together and really embody those new SOPs. So I would say, I think community building for us was one of the biggest things that we had invested in. But the opposite happened for us, which was we had no time to improve tech debt. In fact, we had weeks where every lunch time we would break in terms of our servers, and no matter how much we would try to fix it, our technology team said, "Fran, we need to fundamentally change certain things," and that is so. We had taken. Thankfully, there were some startups that did not have work for their tech team. So we had teamed up with them to say, we'll cover their salaries. Can you give us 2 developers? And we had another team rolling every single day for the 2 weeks, literally changing our infrastructure to allow for higher load, and it helped us scale. But our BAU was firefighting every day, right? And the biggest thing that I said is like, people think that, oh, it's great that we had more orders, but it's not all roses, right? When you scale, the good scale, but so does bad, right? So literally what happens once a month can happen once a minute, and you didn't solve for it before because it was once a month and you were focusing on once a minute issues, but now everything became once a minute and you were like, oh my goodness, I need to solve for all those, right? And so that was what we meant by firefighting, and that was really tough, and coming together and having the team realize, okay, we have to be helpful and have to be safe. I think those 2 messages really help bring them together.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, babe. Like, I think that really depicts the true nature of, scaling a company during tough times. I'm sure like the next time, if you could go back and like do something differently, it would be to invest in more tech. Thankfully that you guys had to, collaborate with somebody and just get your tech people to be on borrow and manage to build that up. We use a lot of GoGets as well in SOCAR, so we're extremely thankful for you guys to be around. And last but not least, Chun. So we also work with MrSpeedy, but I'm going to let you answer.
Sure. Right. A lot of good, interesting topics being discussed. I'll try not to overlap. So for us, it's been a roller coaster ride, really, since the first lockdown. I think, like what Francesca said, this is something very new for a lot of the organization, MCO, lockdown. For us, to be honest, we're very fortunate to be in this space, in the right industry at the right time. I think for us, to be honest, our business really grew 10 times in the MCO. It happened literally overnight. So for us as a pretty small team also back then, pretty small organization, we really have to learn how to adapt. We remembered that like we just started gaining a lot of visibility, awareness from the market. Like articles started featuring us, because essentially urgent deliveries or on-demand deliveries were the bridge for non-essential services to be able to still operate, basically. So we were essentially the bridge, and we were very fortunate to be that bridge, right? To enable businesses to be able to operate and still function from selling online, from offline online. So I remember our inbound chats, our inbound calls started going from hundreds to thousands just overnight. Those were some of the crazy things, that happened. So I think what was the key that we did was essentially working and collaborating with external companies that at that time were underutilized. So we were trying to find opportunities such as, for example, mentioned our demand grew 10 times, and we had to make sure our supply were able to cope with the demand. So we were working with underutilized industries such as car rental companies and P2P such as SOCAR. So we were doing things like that, to try to balance the supply and demand. So that was just one of the examples that we did. And also similar to GoGet, we were also at the same time trying to manage supply demand. At the same time, we were trying to comply with the whole SOPs that we had, making sure. I remember at that time we were distributing hand sanitizers, hand gloves to our delivery partners as well. So at the same time, we had to manage that other side of things, So those were some interesting times. But for us, so in addition to finding new opportunities to collaborate and to work with expertise, for us, automation was also one of the key things that we did internally. So as we scale, to because of the opportunity that we had, we were finding ways to how to automate in terms of our operations team and also our business processes on how to prepare for next phase of growth that happened overnight that we didn't have time to prepare, but we automation and finding new opportunities to collaborate were some of the biggest driving force, I think, for us. In addition to that, there's also certain processes that we needed to adapt to, like, for example, we acquire clients and also drivers were very different, like pre-COVID and during COVID. Like pre-COVID, probably we have half of the time we were meeting clients, the other half but because of what happened during COVID, I remember to switch our client acquisition process, from offline to online, as well as driver acquisition and driver training, those kind of stuff that we needed to do to make sure our business are still able to function like we did pre-COVID times. So yeah, I think those were some of the points from my side.
Thank you, Chun. And I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, okay, pandemic, but in the mobility space, it is actually quite exciting because that's where like new learnings were pushed to grow in places that we didn't plan to grow. But because this is the time that if we do grow in these areas, we are actually making a big impact for the community, and Malaysians really do need it, right? You may not see that, okay, your business is something that people really appreciate, but now in the pandemic period, like people really, really, really appreciate you guys for being part of this mobility space, for existing essentially. So the next question I have, and you guys were sort of like going to my second question already, like sort of touching on it. So you could expand on what you've talked about just now, but I do want to ask you guys, if there's one thing you can go back and change, what is that? From the learnings that you have today, if you could go back and just change one thing, what would you change? And it could be in terms of processes, It could be in terms of your tech. It could also be in terms of how you view people. And as you think about that, I just want to ask Ben to kind of elaborate on what he spoke about just now in terms of people, right? And then you guys can touch on that also, is that when you invest in people, and I think, Francesca, you touched a little bit about community building, is that you don't look at them as just an employee, right? You don't look at them as just a database. It's essentially that you want to empower them to let them know that whatever they're doing, whatever sacrifices that they're putting out there is going to benefit Malaysians, right? It's going to benefit the rakyat. So tell us a little bit, Ben, about how you guys have managed to retain the employees, train them, optimize them in the underutilized period, right, as you mentioned, and especially because they're working from home. How would they pivot or relocated into what types of services within your own company?
Right. So yeah, work from home. That was one thing I forgot to mention. We did move to a work from home model very quickly. But obviously that only works for certain departments, right? Like our inspectors can't really work from home. When things open again, we switched them to do home inspections. So instead of you having to come to our center and facing roadblocks and all that stuff, or taking any risk, the inspector will come to your home and inspect your car there, with a mask, with gloves, with proper procedures and the right, safety equipment. But in terms of, so we looked at who can work from home, and we let those people work from home, and we enabled them, because it's not always that easy. You need to make sure they have the right tools. You need to make sure they have, so our customer service staff, do they have a strong enough internet connection? Do they have a good headset? Do they have all the equipment that they need? So there's a lot of review that had to be done. We moved very quickly to move people to work from home. Other departments, obviously, it's a bit easier. I've been working from home since I did it with Carsome. I've been in Malaysia once while we had the reciprocal green lane between Singapore. I'm based in Singapore currently. So we had this green lane agreement in October, and I spent 2 weeks in KL, and then the numbers went up again and everything shut down. So I haven't been back since. So I've had to learn as well and adapt. And I think it comes back to communication, right? You need to let your team know what's going on and what you're planning and where you're headed. You need to be very clear on, and I think this is one of the learnings we could have done even a bit better, I think, is to communicate even stronger and be even clearer on our mission, vision, and values. I think we've, at the leadership team, had a lot of discussion on this. And we are driving those quite strongly now. And I think that would have helped us more if we had been even clearer and more communicative about that early on. But other than that, I think that, the key learning is really to keep people involved, especially in times of uncertainty. I think in general, good leadership involves good communication and good communication and letting your team know where you stand and where you're headed. But in times of uncertainty, like what we looked at, what we faced through COVID, it's even more important. It's 3 or 4 or 10 times more important to be out there and communicate and talk and take some of those fears, some of those uncertainties, and also be very open about the fact that there are uncertainties, and that's okay, right? And we as leaders face those same uncertainties, and we don't have all the answers, but we're going to get through it together, and we're going to answer them together. It was reflecting on that time when it comes back to training, right? We were lucky that we had set up the academy beforehand. I think that was a great decision. That wasn't a COVID decision. That was something we had decided beforehand, and we had already set up, and we only accelerated during COVID. So we had a place for people to go and become better at what they do, and even when they couldn't serve customers and they couldn't work on BAU, they could spend their time training and becoming better and learning the tools and really, focusing on what they needed to get better at, to become better at their jobs, to serve our customers better. And we were lucky that we had that place. I think another thing that we're very grateful for is, having raised money at the right time. So we raised the big round back in December of 2019. We had a pretty good, full bank account, and that allowed us some flexibility. That allowed us to make some of these choices we made, to say, yes, economics are not going to look great while we are shut down. We have no income coming in, but we're going to keep our payroll, we're going to keep our team intact, and we're going to carry this for a little while. That's an important lesson. So one lesson also is, I would say, raise money when you can, because you never know what's going to happen and when you're going to need it. So that was another good learning for us.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. I'm really proud of all of you guys for really making all the right decisions at the right time, but also to make things a little bit more exciting that, you know, the audience that are going to watch this may not necessarily to talk to you directly. But I think what would be really interesting for them to understand and know is what were some challenges, or maybe if you guys would like to share, like what were some of the failing points that if you could go back, you would redo it, or you're already catching yourself knowing that you should have done it before and now you're already doing it in preparation for just in case another similar lockdown, because we never know what would happen, right? That potentially could be another lockdown. Who knows? Maybe we cross our fingers, vaccinations will work, but what if it doesn't? No one would know, right? So what would you guys have done differently? Yeah, I know, tough question, but
I'll take this one. Don't worry, I have lots of lessons, lots of failures. So much to pick from. So for mine, I think I would say, looking back, one of the things that, I would have loved to have learned faster was to have a stronger kind of backbone in terms of what I stood for the business, especially in times that are highly stressful, right? So you tend to okay, if my business dropped at 30%, so therefore on the first day of MCO, after that I was like, take any business in, right? Like we need to make sure we're building this back up ASAP, because you want to kind of get back to that 100% at least, right? And it did, obviously, but at that point, because then it's just like you're saying yes. Then we started doing things, not that we should say no, it's just we were doing things that were not scalable and unsustainable. We would sometimes over customize for certain people, just because we're like, yes, let's just do it. It's such a time of need. It's crisis time. Let's go crazy and do. But actually, no, keep calm. Take a step back. What are you trying to do in the long term? Don't over customize, because the issue is if you over customize, it's not usable for so many other any of the other user accounts, right? So, and that's the point about technology platforms. It's meant to be leveraging the fact that we all build on that technology. And so I think that was one of the things that thankfully we did, take back only though in like, I think the fourth to sixth week in that period where we said, this is unsustainable. This is ridiculous. We can't be over customizing and bending over for everyone, right? And then so it instantly alleviated people's work-life balance just got way better. The tech team was happier. So sometimes it was also, but I think it's a sense of leadership, right? It should have been, coming from the top in terms of, okay, let's think a little bit more maturely here, as opposed to short-term and short-sighted. Think a little bit sometimes mid and even long-term, even though sometimes you're really focused on the present because it's pandemic and you just think, okay, we've never gone through this, so what should I be aware of? But you're only looking very close-sighted within your 100 meters, but actually you could just try to expand a little bit more. I think that's my biggest thing I would share.
Thank you, babe, for sharing that. Does anyone else want to add in? I think Nadhir, maybe you might share a similar feeling because you guys were also over customizing for a bit, right?
I'll jump in. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. One thing that if you ask me that what we want to change is, I think it's us being because we were hiring so fast back then. I think it's just sometimes the hiring says that we could probably improve, and also once they were hired, I think in the setting the expectations right. I think that was kind of misaligned on how, because we grew so fast that we were those things sidelined a little bit. So I do agree that communication is super important for times like this. So things that we would have done better, and that things that we are doing now, we have basically increased our communication frequency, within our team. I think that's really important. We are practicing, like daily stand-ups within each of the functional teams. We even switched from like monthly town hall to weekly town halls. I do believe a lot in communication frequency and also transparency within the organization. So to make sure everyone's aligned on what's going on, that's why we switch from monthly to weekly town hall. On the other hand, on top of that is keeping the employees motivated, pumped up, especially during periods where things are super busy, like our peak seasons, just sending them corporate gifts, like motivational stuff, like free lunch. Those kind of small things that sometimes it matters. So things like that, I think it's important for us to keep the team, going during times like this. On the other hand, we have also invested in communication/collaboration tools, to make sure, like similar to Carsome, we are also practicing work from home policy. So these are the sort of tools that is helping us to collaborate better, to communicate better. So we also did that. And there's one thing I would also like to point out was I'm quite proud on how our internal product team, internal product is very flexible, and it's basically it's almost climate proof. Like it's able to protect us during certain times. Like basically what I mean is in the delivery space, basically you have your on demand, you have your same day, which is not so urgent, which is your 3 to 4 hours delivery, and you have your next day delivery sort of things. So basically for us it's important basically to have a very flexible internal product/technology to be able to be climate proof. I think there's something that I think we were doing well, in addition to have a very transparent and frequent communication. So I think these are the two things from my side.
Thank you, Chun. I like that word, climate.
Sorry.
That's like the aspiration. All right, Nadhir, go.
Sorry to cut you off. The thing about this question, right, which is one thing that you have changed. The thing about this question is you would have known, whether the thing is right or wrong until you actually experience it, right? So, it's like, investment or trading or whatever. You got to lose money first. Then only you'll make money, correct or not? Right? So until and unless you put money into a particular investment, you click on it, and then you lose money, then only you learn, actually how you do it, right? So same thing. For us, I think our problem is probably the same as Fran and the others in terms of technical debt, in terms of system scalability. We made a particular mistake. I wish I can share. We made a particular mistake, I would say integration error, right? Integration with a particular client error, which actually had financial ramifications, right? So we were sending some wrong data, whatever, which, like I said, financial ramifications, and we did not realize it like 2 months into the integration. And it has some snowball effect, right? Some snowball effect here and there, which led to us not being able to understand exactly how much to pay our driver partners. And when you do not pay your driver partners, what happens? No items could go up. So this is, but there are a lot of other factors that came in, but safe to say, item came in, item cannot go out. So in a supply chain business like ours, when you have that, GG.com on mine, right? So it's gonna be really bad, right? And this is where, complaints came in, and it was to the extent that my personal Facebook was spammed by customers who couldn't get their parcels. My personal Instagram was spammed by customers who could not get their parcel. My wife's Instagram was spammed by people who cannot get their parcels. It's because perhaps, the co-founder and executive director of TheLorry is visible on social media. So if you're angry at Post Laju, you don't message the flair, right? You don't message the CEO or the chairman, right? Or just because this guy is visible, you message the guy. But it was not a good place for us. Now for me, personally, I was having, you could say, not really mental health problem, but that in the sense that we had problems. We knew what the problem was, and we were like just trying to fix it as much as possible. And things really stable, perhaps towards the end of December. This happened around November of 2020, and things stable around December. And I think we are very thankful that now things are really, really stable. You know, we have managed to do whatever fixes, whatever patches that we needed to do, and whatever mistakes that happened earlier on, we no longer have those mistakes anymore, and it's much more scalable this time around. So we are ready. We are definitely ready to 10x the business going forward. But the thing is, if we did not experience this very dark episode in our history, we would have made such changes. So yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I guess like just owning up to the mistake and just putting it out there is also one way to kind of like overcome it, right? Showing your clients and customers that can rely on you and that you're continuously growing and fixing it. One thing that I really wanted to kind of do with this panel as well is that I want to let people see like the faces of, you know, thriving startups in Malaysia and, you know, businesses that are helping them kind of like go through their day-to-day lives as well. But the funny thing was, like, I guess in Nadhir's case, sometimes if shit hits the fans, you know, people spam you, unfortunately, and give you a lot of feedback. But with the feedback, of course, you know, we take it and also grow with it, right? We're down to the last 9 minutes of our section. I would just like to open up the floor now for any of you to share tips and tricks, advice for businesses. It doesn't have to be in the mobility space, but anyone really. Like, you guys are all mentors and role models for a lot of you know, businesses in Malaysia. We can definitely learn from you guys. So maybe one last key takeaway that you would like to share, just for anyone listening. Anyone can go first.
Maybe I'll just, go ahead. Oh, first, okay. I'll share this, and maybe I'll also kind of hit even the question that Matthew has asked, since it's kind of linked to that, right? Like one quick tip, and I think he asked here, how did you validate your ideas, and how long did it take you to do this before entering the market when you first started the company? So I'll just give you that as well. I guess one of my biggest tips that I do say for people who are starting to validate their ideas is that I think most people think the only way they can validate is if they try like to push out the version 1. I would just want to really emphasize that version 1 can be so many versions, and you can slice your testing and your validation into really, really tiny bite sizes that makes it so affordable for you to test, validate certain hypothesis. You don't need to like validate it only in one shot where you have a pretty baked solution to even validate. You can validate it at a very tiny level. What I mean by that is, with GoGet, we validated once where I did to my teammate. I used to work in a consulting company, so I looked at her and I was like, hey, can you order lunch? What do you want for lunch? And she was like, oh, I just really want this kinkin pan mi. If you're Malaysians, you probably know what kinkin pan mi is. And I was like, great, I'm going to start a WhatsApp chat. I have a friend who's like, says he's going to be my go-getter. He's going to like go and get you your kinkin pan mi, but can you just like put your order into this WhatsApp and then we'll do it. And then she was like, sure. I was like, okay, great. So I got my friend who is the go-getter, and then this was a poster, and I was like, okay, WhatsApp was free. I didn't invest in testing this, right? WhatsApp was free. She was like, okay, can I get a bowl of this? And he was like, yep, sure. What else do you need? She was like, yeah, I just want extra chili. And then he went off and then came back, and then she was like, oh, where he, all these questions that she would have, and I got so much insight already by just going, oh wow, like I need a tracker, I need the ability for the guy to communicate to her, because when he got there, the chilies ran out or something, and so he needed to change and adjust. I needed a way and then I asked her, I was like, how much would you pay for that? And then she gave a number. Back then I can't remember. And then I was like, oh, then I already have a interest in price here. And then I go to him, I'm like, would you have done it for like 10 ringgit? And then he's like, maybe if I was around the corner, but I wouldn't do it if I was in Subang. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting reply, right? Then I knew to optimize, like, okay, I needed a close proximity blasting to find the closest person to do it. I mean, there was just so much insight from just using a technology that I did not have to build, right? I didn't build the version, I just needed to use WhatsApp. So I always encourage, even if you're trying to like start a shoe business or like any kind of business, you actually can really validate things through very cheap ways at first. And I think that's something that some people always think, oh, I need to build the first version before I can test it. I'm like, no, don't do that, right? You could do a lot of things before that, right? And I would encourage you to do that before you take that big step.
That's awesome, babe. Thanks for that. Another way to kind of lead it that I've learned before is that sometimes it's just, it's okay to maybe just print business cards and start like talking about it, or like just starting an Insta page to see and gain traction before you invest in full-blown tech or a full-blown team. Validate your ideas, talk to a lot of people, and I definitely agree with that. Like just gauging the entire process and mapping it out before you even take that first big investment in tech. Love your answer. Anyone else would like to add on another angle, another perspective in terms of starting new businesses, or even making the most out of your business now, taking it from where it is today to launching it or making it thrive even more, 5x, 10x, whatever number that may be. Anyone would like to chip in? Okay, Ben, I saw that you're ready.
I can pick up on that. I think what Francesca just mentioned. So the interesting thing is that what she just stays true almost at any scale of your business, right? So even with Carsome now, 5 years old, raised a bunch of money, 1,000+ people, we still try to operate that way. And we still have to push ourselves to operate that way, to say, hey, every little feature or change that we want to test, we don't have to spend 2-3 months in product and tech and build it out. There's cheaper, more agile, coming back to our theme around agility. We still force ourselves to stay agile and test things in specific ways that are very quick, very cheap, don't involve tying up our, tech. So I think most of us will know you never have enough tech and product resources, right? I don't think I've ever been in a company that felt like they had enough tech and product resources. And the same is true for us. So we're trying a lot of things in really very startup-y ways, even at our size of company, right? To just validate very, very quickly and reiterate. And you enable your team to do this if you take away their fear of failure, right? So when you run all these experiments, many of them won't work, and that's perfectly fine, right? Because it's not really a failure. Actually, the fact that the experiment didn't work is a success because you got to change your strategy now. You got to go down a different path, right? So whether the experiment works or fails, it doesn't really matter. It's just learning, continuous learning, and it helps you adapt where you're headed. So to pick up on Francesca's agility theme there, I think that really stays true at any organization, no matter how large.
Great. Thank you for building up on each other's points. I love that. This feels like our own very Clubhouse. For those people who are on Android and didn't get a chance to be on Clubhouse, this is exactly how it's like. Conversations, building on each other's points, sometimes that occasional discourse, which unfortunately we didn't get to go into because that's also fun. But yes, let's kind of finish it off with Nadhir and then Chun, and then I'm going to just summarize and then we'll end the session.
Cool. I think I'll cover the people bit, i.e. Building teams, especially during this pandemic. I would say that we did hire quite a few people throughout MCO, CMCO, RMCO, to the point that right now we're back to office in the sense in HQ where you have a 25% limit, right? So that's about 26 people that can come to the office. And sometimes when I see a particular team member, I do not know this person, right? Because we onboarded them online, right? They are serving a particular function, customer service, and I don't even know their names, to that point. So I would say the thing about building teams, especially during this very interesting period, is transparency. We were very, very transparent when we talk about our financial condition and also our business condition to all the team members in all 4 countries, right? During the first MCO. So we told them, okay, guys, this is going to happen. If this and this happens, then we'll go back to normal. If not, then this is the plan. So we laid out everything. We become very transparent about our condition and also what the future holds. And I think that really attracted some. I got some PMs after that. They really appreciated it, and a lot of them stayed true. And although there were some salary cuts involved, but eventually they stayed true, and they really appreciated what we did. And I guess that really contributed to the retention that we're getting post. I mean, not post, but we're still in COVID age, but I guess things are slightly better than normal now, better than before. So I guess they're still sticking around. So yeah, transparency is very important.
Thank you, Nadhir. All right, last but not least, Chun.
All right, I'll just add on to some points. The question about validating. I remember when we first started in Malaysia, we started with just a website. We did not have an app actually, and we ran it for 3 months and almost a year. So I think that was to support the point that Ben and Francesca said that you don't need to spend so much in tech to validate your ideas, and that's exactly what we did. And just to do a quick recap on the question on what's important for startups in today's world, I'll just do a quick summarize on what I think is important. Number one, it's making sure your business is adding value to society/community. Number two, finding the right price point. If you have two of those right, I think very high chance your business is going to do well. And the third one that I'm going to add in because of the pandemic, it's try to build a defensive wall to make your business climate proof. I'm going to use that word again. So I think those are the 3 points that I want to share with guys who are listening. Yeah.
Thank you, Chun. Yeah, I think we can attest to wanting to be climate proof. And when I decided for this panel session to happen and the title, I didn't know what would come out of it. But from our conversation in the past 1 hour, the key thing that has been talked about over again, which is the main pillar of agility, it's communication, right? We keep talking about how communication will enable us to retain people, build teams, hire, eliminate fear of failure, building a community, and all that comes from like an authentic place in order to not just create impact for your organization, but to create impact for your employees, which will then create impact for the community. And with the agility portion and the communication portion, it's almost like you can be climate proof, right? Because you can almost communicate and be agile towards any direction that needs more attention, needs more resources. And you guys have painted a really real picture here. And thank you so much for being so authentic and so real to all of us and just sharing like your failures and your successes. And I just want to thank you guys for spending your Sunday afternoon with us in front of the computer when, beautiful out there and you could have been like jogging in the park or playing tennis, but you're here just trying to create your impact in the Malaysian community as well. So that is it for us. And thank you so much for joining us. See you guys again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, guys.